The idea is we are working through a process that will give all of the parties before the court a fair trial. With that in mind, as part of the process, we're going to be referring to you by the number on your chest. What's going to be occurring today is everything is being taken down by the court reporter that's sitting here to my left. And at some point in the future, we may need to go back through the transcript and figure out who said what at what time, and it's easier for us to do that by number. Also, the reason that we're using numbers here is because we're doing what we can to ensure that you all are as comfortable with the process as we can possibly make it. What that means for this particular trial is we're using numbers because we're trying to make sure that we don't push any individual information or personal information, I should say, out. Okay? I know that this case is being covered, and the idea is that you need to be comfortable providing us with information. So no images are being pushed out of this room. We're not going to be referring to anybody by their names. And again, personal information, we're doing everything we can to protect that personal information. Again, the idea is you need to be comfortable with the process. The process, again, there's going to be questioning, and so I need for you all to speak up as we move through this. This room, it's pretty good acoustically, and in the other room, usually we can pick everybody up. But if for some reason I interrupt you and let you know that I cannot hear you, I apologize for that. I just need to make sure everybody knows they need to project their voices so that we can hear everything that is being done, or being said, I should say. But I'm not going to belabor this. I'd like to get into this so that we don't keep you here any longer than we have to. So what we're going to do, again, is I'm going to swear you in as the panel, and then we're going to get right into the questioning here before the court. So with that, if I could please have you stand and raise your right hand. If you please respond. Ladies and gentlemen, you shall give true answers to all questions as may be asked by the court or its authority, including all questions asked by the parties or their attorneys concerning your qualifications as jurors in the case of the state of Georgia versus Travis McMichael, Gregory McMichael, and William R. Bryan. So help you God. All right, thank you. Be seated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, this is the case of the state of Georgia versus Travis McMichael, Gregory McMichael, and William R. Bryan, who are charged each individually and as parties concerned in the commission of a crime by the grand jury of Glynn County with the offenses of murder, felony murder in 4 counts, aggravated assault in 2 counts, false imprisonment, and criminal attempt to commit a felony. If you could please raise your hand if any of you are related by blood or marriage to Travis McMichael, Gregory McMichael, William R. Bryan, or Ahmaud Arbery. If you could please raise your hand if you, for any reason, have formed and expressed any opinion in regard to the guilt or innocence of the accused. All right. Ma'am, I can't see your number right down at the end. 339. Now, the other thing we've noticed with this process is there's a glare on those cards, and so if you could just make sure we can see your card. I got 339, 342. And sir, in the plaid there, what is that, 344? 353? Ma'am, I can't see your number. 355. 355? All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please raise your hand if you have any prejudice or bias resting on your mind, either for or against the accused. And 342. 344. Okay, thank you. Please raise your hand if your mind is not perfectly impartial between the state and the accused. Okay. At the end there, what's 353? And I saw another one. What was your numbers? 358?
I think 368, Your Honor.
368?
268.
Okay, we've heard a lot of numbers. I can't see your card at all, sir. So 268. Thank you. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. One thing I didn't say as we went through this, the questions as we move through this process are not intended to make you feel uncomfortable. The idea behind these questions is the lawyers are simply trying to determine if we can get a fair, unbiased, impartial juror before the court who is willing to listen to the evidence and will seek the truth as the truth of that evidence is or shall be, and then ultimately reach a verdict. So as we move through these questions, please understand that. Also, if for some reason you feel truly uncomfortable responding to any of the questions from the state or the defendants, just let us know, and we'll figure out some way to make sure that those responses are recorded. So with that, is the state ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor, we are.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. All right. So what's going to happen now is we're going to ask you a series of questions. They're kind of yes or no questions. All right. So you want to raise your hand, raise it high, because I will miss you if it's like right here. I won't get you, and I want to make sure I get it. Here's the other thing. If you think it applies to you, it does. If you have a question about the question, raise your hand, because what we want to do right now, but we're going to have a chance to speak to you individually later. So if you have a question about it, you think it might apply to you, go ahead and raise your card, and then we can talk about it in the other room individually. Okay? So let's go ahead and get started. Is there anyone here who no longer resides in Glenn County? No hands. Is there anyone here under the age of 18? No hands. Is there anyone here who has been convicted of a felony and has not had their rights restored? No hands. Is there anyone here that sat on the grand jury that returned this indictment in June of 2020? No hands. Is there anyone here who currently works in law enforcement and is a post-certified law enforcement officer with arrest powers, either federally or locally? No hands. Is there anyone here who is 70 years of age or older and does not wish to serve on this jury? 342. Is there anyone here who is a full-time student currently enrolled in and attending classes? No hands. Is there anyone here who is the full-time caretaker of a child under the age of 6 who has no reasonable alternative means of care for that child under 6? 373. Is there anyone here that is a full-time caretaker of a child under the Is there anyone here who's a full-time caretaker of a disabled or elderly person and they have no other reasonable means of alternative care for that disabled or elderly person in your life? No cards. Is there anyone here who has difficulty understanding the English language? No cards. And is there anyone here who has difficulty hearing? 353 and 268. All right, so gentlemen, how am I doing if I talk into the mic? Is it okay for right now? Okay, and sir, you're good? All right. All right, so my name is Linda Dunikoski, and I'm a member of the Cobb County District Attorney's Office, but we are prosecuting this case. With me are my trial partners, Paul Camarillo and Larissa Olivier. Does anybody here think they know us? No hands. We anticipate that this trial is going to run through November 19th. Okay, so that's like kind of the Friday before Thanksgiving. So what I'm asking is for you to let us know if you think that you have a scheduling conflict that's in your personal life. So I'm not talking about work. I'm talking about something big. You have surgery planned next week. You have a flight to go to Vermont for the birth of your first grandchild, and it's really, really important, and that flight leaves next week, and you want to let us know that you have this scheduling conflict or some sort of hardship in your personal life where you're not going to be able to even be here for this trial. Does that apply to anyone? 355. Thank you. All right, is there anyone here who's related by blood or marriage to the Brunswick Judicial Circuit District Attorney, Keith Higgins? He's your elected official. Is anyone here related by blood or marriage to Mr. Higgins? Does anyone know Mr. Higgins personally? No cards. Is anyone here related by blood or marriage to your former district attorney, Jackie Johnson? Does anyone know Ms. Johnson personally? No cards. Is there anyone here who has a particular opinion about last year's election where District Attorney Jackie Johnson was defeated by Keith Higgins and was elected to the position of District Attorney? Anyone with an opinion about that particular election? 339. Does anyone here have an opinion about how or why the Cobb County District Attorney's Office was assigned to be the temporary District Attorney's Office prosecuting this case by the Georgia Attorney General? Does anyone have an opinion about why we're here? No. 364. You did the right thing. That's the right thing. If you got a question, it's something, go ahead and raise your card. We'll talk about it. So that's 364. All right, so is there anybody here who would be unable to give the state a fair trial because we're from Cobb County? We're in Marietta. We don't live here. We're not from here. Is there anybody who wouldn't be able to give the state a fair trial because the prosecutors aren't from here? No cards. All right, so this is about Waycross Judicial Circuit District Attorney George Barnhill. Does anybody know Waycross DA George Barnhill or related to him by blood or marriage? No cards. Now, George Barnhill Jr. is a former assistant district attorney here who is now practicing law in Brunswick. Does anybody know him personally? No cards. And does anybody know Atlantic Judicial Circuit District Attorney Tom Durden? Tom Durden of the Atlantic Judicial Circuit. And related to him? Know him? No cards. All right, so we have also, for the defense, we have Mr. Jason Sheffield and Mr. Robert Rubin. Does anyone know either Mr. Sheffield or Mr. Rubin? No cards. We have Mr. and Mrs. Hogue, Frank Hogue and Laura Hogue. Does anyone know them? No cards. And then we have Kevin Goff. Does anyone know Mr. Goff? Either worked with him or know him personally? Utilized his services. We have 353 and 268. Does, oh, I did, Miss Burton. Does anyone know Miss Jessica Burton? No cards. Now, does anyone know Travis McMichael? Anyone know Greg McMichael? No cards. Does anyone know William Bryan? No cards. Does anyone here know Miss Amy Elrod? No cards. Does anyone here know Mrs. Lee McMichael, Greg McMichael's wife? Does anyone know Lindsay McMichael, Greg McMichael's daughter? No cards. The victim in this case is Mr. Ahmaud Arbery. Did anyone here know Mr. Arbery personally? 356 and 374. Does anyone here know his mother, Ms. Wanda Cooper Jones? Does anyone here know his father, Marcus Arbery Sr.? 356 and 361. And I have to ask, does anyone here know Judge Walmsley? No cards. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask about prior jury service. What I'm looking for are people who went through this process where you came down, you got questioned in voir dire, we did the jury selection, and you got selected to sit on the jury. You heard all the evidence in the case, and you went back and you deliberated with 11 other people. Has anyone been through that particular process? Nobody here. Oh, 353. Sure, just give me a minute, sir. I'm going to go ahead and so 353, I will talk to you about that. So 353, so basically no verdict, it was settled. All right, and then 268. What I'm asking about is, did you serve on a jury where you heard all the evidence and then went into the back jury room and deliberated with 11 other people?
Several years ago, I was on a jury.
Okay, and were you the foreperson? Okay. Gwinnett County. All right. And that's 268. All right, thank you, gentlemen. Is there anyone here who's ever served on a grand jury before? No cards. All right, so when you got your summons for jury duty, it directed you kind of to the clerk's website. So it had information. It had information about COVID. It had information about where you were supposed to be and what you're supposed to do. Now, there were also some links, electronic links on that page that linked to some documents in this case, like legal documents. Really boring documents. And it's okay. If you went and looked at it, they were publicly available, they were there. We just need to know if you went and clicked through and looked at any documents that were in relationship to this case. If you did, just raise your hand. It's not a big deal. We just need to know. No cards. Please raise your hand if you served in the military. 352, 353, and 268. Great. Thank you for your service. Oh, and one more. 361. All right, so I have 4 people. Great. Is there anyone here who's had prior law enforcement training or had previously been a post-certified law enforcement officer with arrest powers? No cards. Is there anyone here who has a close personal friend or a close relative who is a law enforcement officer? 344, 353, 355, 356. We'll go ahead and put you down for 339? All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, when I ask about close family members and close personal friends, I'm not talking about Uncle Bob in Iowa who you haven't spoken to in like 15 years. I'm talking about people in your life that you're talking to on a regular basis and have an intimate relationship with them so that they'd have talked to you about topics like law enforcement. Okay? So that's kind of what we're looking for. So, but that was a good question. She did the right thing. If you have a question about it, raise your card. Okay. So now I'm looking for people who you personally have had work experience in the field of social work. Anybody here previously been a social worker or had experience in that field? 364 and 268. Is there anyone here who's had work experience in the field of counseling, psychology, psychiatry? It was your undergraduate degree, psychology, you've been a counselor before, that kind of thing. Anybody in that field? 364. Anyone else? All right. Is there anyone here with work experience in the legal field? Either you're a lawyer, paralegal, legal secretary, admin, you just have some criminal justice background, you've got that sort of legal field background. 268. Is there anyone here with any work experience within the criminal justice system? And that could mean you worked at a prison or a jail, you were on probation, counseling, you did ministry at a prison, anything that related to something within the criminal justice system. Anybody work within that? 364. That's what you're supposed to do, 364. Perfect. And 361. All right. Now, is there anyone here related to or has a close friend, or you even know somebody who works in a district attorney's office anywhere in the country? Family member, friend, you know somebody who's an assistant district attorney. 355. And 353. All right, is there anyone here who is related to, has a close personal friend, or knows a criminal defense attorney? One of your friends is a criminal defense attorney. You've got a relative who is one? No? Okay. Okay. Is there anyone here with some medical training? And I don't mean you were a lifeguard. I don't mean you know CPR. I'm talking about you've got medical training. It's kind of your degree. It's what you're doing with your job. All right, let's see what we've got. 373, 351, and 372? Is there anyone here who's had a bad experience with law enforcement? No cards.
No, you,
Oh.
361.
361. Is there anyone who's had a good experience with law enforcement? 342, 364, 268. 361. Is there anyone here who's had a bad experience with a prosecutor or an assistant district attorney? Bad experience with a prosecutor? No hands. Is there anyone here who's had a bad experience with a criminal defense attorney? No hands. All right, so what we're going to talk about now is arrests, prosecutions, convictions, that kind of thing. And we're talking about from DUI to something more serious, like DUI, shoplifting, on up to something more serious, okay? So first off, has anyone here ever been arrested, prosecuted, convicted of something like a DUI to something more serious? We just need to know. 342, 356, 357, 339, 361, and 268. All right, so now we're talking about close family members, close personal friends that have been arrested, prosecuted, convicted for DUI to something more serious. Does that apply to anyone? Have a close personal friend, family member that's been convicted or prosecuted. 339, 352, 353, 356, 357, 361, and 372. Please raise your hand if you feel that you've ever been falsely accused of a crime, whether it involved the police or not. No hands. Is there anybody here who feels a close family member or personal friend has been falsely accused of a crime, whether it involved the police or not? 353. All right, so what we're going to talk about now is being the victim of a crime. So we're talking about being the victim of a crime. So first off, is there anybody here who has been the victim of a violent crime or a crime against your person? Okay, so when I say crime against your person, it could even be, I was carrying my purse and somebody grabbed it off my shoulder. If it's a crime against your person, that's what we're talking about here. So we have 339, 342, 355, 361. All right, so now, friends or family members who have been the victims of a crime against their person or some other sort of violent crime. 355 and 361. Has anyone here ever witnessed a violent crime in progress. Has anyone ever taken cell phone video of a crime in progress? No hands to either question. All right, so now we're going to talk about burglaries and home invasions. Burglaries are when you come home and you find your stuff's gone. Home invasion is when you are home and somebody kicks the door in, or you wake up in the middle of the night and they're standing over you, kind of thing. I'm looking to see if either you, close family member, close personal friend, has been the victim of either a burglary or a home invasion. Please raise your hand if that applies to you or a close family member or friend. 339, 342, 353, 368, and 268. Anyone else? Is there anyone here, you yourself, close personal friend, family member, who's ever had a handgun, rifle, or shotgun stolen out of your house or your car? Had a handgun stolen out of your car, had a handgun or rifle, shotgun stolen out of your house? 342. Please raise your card if you've called 911 to report a crime, like you saw a drunk driver, you saw somebody, snatch a purse in a parking lot. You called 911 to report a crime. 339. Is there anyone here who's had to give a statement to law enforcement? And I'm not talking after the fender bender by the side of the road. I'm talking you've gone down to have to give a statement to law enforcement, sort of a formal statement. 342, 368, 361, and 351. Thank you. Yes, you got to grab my attention. Hand up. All right. Is there anyone here who's ever been a witness at trial? Meaning you've gone into the courtroom, you've sat in the witness stand, taken the oath to tell the truth. There's a judge there. There may or may not have been a jury, but you were summoned to give testimony at kind of a trial. It could be civil, it could be criminal. All right, we've got 361, 368, 268. Is that it? Okay. Please raise your hand if you have ever taken it upon yourself to go investigate a crime. No cards. Do you guys know anybody who's taken it upon themselves to go and investigate a crime? Outside of law enforcement, you know of anybody? 368. All right, so I'm going to have you look at each other. Anybody know anybody in the room? Jurors, do you know each other? Anybody here know each other? Okay, we got a bunch of hands. Let's see. All right, 353, 344, 351, 352. Didn't I see another hand? No? All right, so I'm going to do this. 353, who do you know?
352 or 3 down
Okay,
there.
so 352, you guys know each other. So 352 and 353. So 344, who do you know? 351, seated next to each other, so you guys know each other. All right. Now, when you were out at Selden Park 2 weeks ago, there were a whole lot of people out there when you first showed up for jury duty, right? Okay. What I'm going to ask you, it's a little bit of a long question, so let me get it all out. Did you recognize anybody else there that if they were on the jury with you, it might be a problem? I'll give you an example. It's your father. So you and your dad might end up on the jury. It's your boss, or it's somebody who reports to you. Somebody where it might put you in an awkward situation if you were both on this jury. Does that apply to anybody? 361. Anyone else? No. All right, so I'm going to ask this in the reverse. Is there anyone here who you personally do not own any firearm, and there is no firearm in your household? Because obviously other people in your household might own a firearm. So you don't have any guns in your household, and you don't own any guns. No rifles, no shotguns, no nothing. 339, 356, 357, 372, 373, 270, and 268. Is there anyone here who's ever carried a handgun or a sidearm as part of their job? 353 and 268. Is there anyone here who's taken it upon themselves to go out and get firearms training? You know, you took a class. You went and got some training in your firearms. 352, 356, 361, 368, 372, and 364. Please raise your hand if you have lived in Glenn County, this area, for less than 5 years. 355 and 372. Sorry, I have to have some water. I'm dying here. All right, does anyone here currently live in the Satilla Shores neighborhood? Anyone here live in Satilla Shores? Has anyone here previously lived in Satilla Shores? Is there anyone here who's especially familiar with Satilla Shores because you have family or friends there, or you've gone there and just are familiar with it for some other reason? 339. All right. Is there anyone here who resides in the Royal Oaks neighborhood? Is there anyone here who previously resided in Royal Oaks? Is there anyone here who's especially familiar with Royal Oaks due to family, friends, or another reason? No cards. Is there anyone here who's familiar? I'm sorry, back it up. Is there anyone here who lives in Fancy Bluff, the Fancy Bluff neighborhood? Anyone live in Fancy Bluff? Is there anyone here who previously lived in Fancy Bluff? Is there anyone here who's especially familiar with the Fancy Bluff neighborhood or the street Boykin Ridge? No cards. All right, is there anyone here who has a religious, moral, or ethical conviction that would keep you from passing judgment on another person? In other words, we select you to be a juror, and you go back in there with 11 other people, and you are never going to render a verdict. You're never going to come back with guilty or not guilty. I mean, that's the only thing you're going to be charged with doing is come back with guilty or not guilty, but you just feel like I cannot go back there and deliberate with others. I'm never going to reach a verdict because of a religious, moral, or ethical conviction. 355. Anyone else have a private reason for not being able to deliberate with others and reach a verdict? No cards. All right, so this is a reverse question. Is there anyone here who does not belong to any groups? And that means you are not a member of any religious, fraternal, or social organization. You don't go to church. You don't go to a synagogue or mosque. You don't belong to a book club, a bridge club, a bowling league. You don't belong to any professional associations like the American Marketing Association if you're in marketing. You just don't belong to any groups at all. If that applies to you, please raise your card. 357, 372, 270. Please raise your hand if you, a relative, or a close friend has ever been arrested and the circumstances of that arrest were such that you thought that they were treated unfairly by either the police or the criminal justice system. 342. Please raise your hand if you, a relative, or a close friend has ever been arrested for kidnapping or false imprisonment. No cards. Please raise your hand if you, a relative, or a close friend has ever been arrested for shooting someone or shooting at someone. No cards. Please raise your hand if a close relative or close personal friend has ever been arrested for murder, whether it involved a handgun or not, any type of murder. Sure thing. Please raise your hand if a relative or a close friend has ever been arrested for the crime of murder, doesn't matter how the murder took place. And that is 357. All right. Is there anyone here who feels that they will not be able to follow the law because you might disagree with it, or you think the law should be something else? Because the judge is going to instruct you, you have a duty to follow the law that the judge gives you. But some people, they think, well, I disagree with the law, or I think it should be something else. I'm not going to be able to follow that law. Is there anyone here who feels that way, that they're not going to be able to follow the law that the judge gives them? No cards. Is there anyone here who wants to serve on this jury? Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm now going to go ahead and read through a list of potential witnesses. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and move through it. So call out. I mean, literally feel free to stop me and raise your card, because I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. But if you think it's somebody you know personally, please raise your hand and let us know you know that person. All right? So the first set of people are going to be Glenn County police officers. Glenn County police officers. William Duggan, Sheila Ramos, Chris Lowther, Ricky Shane Minshew, Jeffrey Brandenberry, Adam Jackson, Parker Marcy, Brad Butler for 344. Caitlin Roberts Phillips, Roderick Nohilly, Stephen Lowry, Brandon Gregory, Diana Bibby, Sherry Batchelor, Christopher Hatcher, Robert Rash, Officer Powers, Officer Stansberry, Officer Owens, anyone here know Glenn County Sheriff's Office Deputy Stephanie Herndon Britt? Glenn County Police Officer Ronald Cooper. All right, so now I'm going to go through and list off some people who are with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Okay, there's two kinds of people. There's special agents, they're detectives, and then there's the crime lab people. So this is the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Jason Seacrest, Jessica Hamilton, Matthew Heath, Lawrence Kelly, Brian Smith, Jessica Woodward, Richard Dial, Garrett Morton, Amanda Barker. All right, no hands. And then with the crime lab, we have James Jim Gordon, Amanda Cook, Jesse Worley, Ann Kistler-Rao, Brian Leopard, Dr. Edmund Donahue. And then with the Glenn County 911 Center, we have Kara Richardson, Jamie Dunwoody. All right, now the following folks are not going to be law enforcement kind of people. So I want to know if anybody here knows Mr. Joe Mandela, Joseph Allen Bartlett, Subi Lawrence, Annabelle Beasley, Christy Barber, Matthew Albenze, John Ronald Olson, who goes by Ronnie Olson, Diego Perez, Brooke Perez, Larry English, Amy English, Kelly Parr, or her father Randall Parr, Daniel Alcott, Christine Alcott, Judith Alcott, Kim Ballesteros, Carol Flowers, Lauren Bennett, Linda Randall, Ashley Wittenberg, Danielle Stoddard, Cynthia Drummond, James Trimmings, Catherine Miles, Cody Johannes, Derek Thomas, Hillary Lauren Brady Germano, Josh McGowan, Kyle Meisner, Nicole Lee Joyner, Rusty Russ Wayne Johnson, Zach Langford, his wife Ashley Langford, Heaven Bryan, Peyton Thompson. Did I miss anyone? All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. The defense is going to have some questions for you.
Thank you. Mr. Sheffield.
Yes, thank you, Judge. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. You'll notice some gaps in your numbers across all of you, which means some people didn't show up. And we appreciate that you did. Your duty to us is very much appreciated. So we've been doing this process now for 2 weeks, and we have already read your forms that you filled out, a lot of very honest answers there in your questionnaires, which we appreciate. And we want you to continue to be honest with us today. You will not hurt our feelings. We invite you to share your opinions and beliefs with us. And so that's what we hope to accomplish today. In sitting here for a little bit, I want to double back on to see whether or not you recognize any of the accused sitting over here to my right. So if you'll just take another look at Travis McMichael, formerly with Coast Guard and Metson Marine. I don't know if that places him in your mind at all, but if it does, you recognize him, you raise your hand. Okay, very good. His dad, Greg McMichael, now sitting here for a little bit. Anybody feel like they may have seen him or known him previously from anything? Okay, perfect. And then Mr. Roddy Bryan. You come around and see if you can't see over there. Anybody recognizes Mr. Bryan? Okay, perfect. So, of course, a lot of you have heard about this case in the media or in the community or just talking with friends, coworkers, or whatnot. In doing so, have any of you come to hold a negative opinion about the men charged, whether that be Travis or Greg or Mr. Bryan? If any of you hold a negative opinion, whatever that is, however extensive it might be or not, we'd just like to try to understand that a little bit better. All right, 339. And just so you know, I'm going to go row by row very painfully and very slowly, so just keep your hand up. 342. 352. 353. 361. And you are hidden over there. 372. Perfect. You can slide down just a little bit. That'd be great. Thank you so much. 373. I don't see any card on you there. Is it your jacket covering it up? Oh, perfect. Thank you. 374 and 268. Very good. Thank you. Now, as a criminal defense attorney, we have lived with the reputation sometimes that people think negatively about us. Don't know why, but some people do. Does anybody here have negative feelings about criminal defense lawyers for doing the work that we do or stepping into the cases that we step into? Wonderful. Please indicate if you have ever decided to support a political candidate because that candidate has, as part of their platform, limiting gun laws in any way, or restricting gun rights in any way, or limiting the types of guns that would be out and available to the public. If you have supported a political candidate for that reason, please raise your hand. No one. If any of you oppose the gun laws that allow persons to carry firearms openly or concealed into public, whether you were taking it on a walk or into the grocery store or to an event or whatever it is, if you oppose the laws that allow people to do that. 268. Thank you. Please indicate if you have participated in any way with any of the social justice demonstrations or marches, meaning you've gone to attend a rally or you've walked for a particular cause, whether that was something that you did before or after the incident in this particular case. Okay, 339. And can you clip that onto your jacket so it's not hidden by your jacket there? Just on the outside would be perfect. Perfect. 374, thank you. Okay.
Let me just jump in. Maybe the easier way to do it, we've done this, if y'all can maybe just unclip what you have, and when you raise your hand, if you could just have your card in your hand, that way we'll be able to see the cards.
Thank you. Included in that support would also be support for Black Lives Matter. This is another question. I think I'm supposed to break this into one question, but now I messed it up, so I'm going to make it two questions. If you have supported Black Lives Matter, whether that be financial support or putting signs out, or if you have supported the Justice for Ahmaud or the I Run with Ahmaud, whether that be through signs or bumper stickers or even in social media posts where you've liked the I Run with Ahmaud or the Justice for Ahmaud and you've passed it along to other people on your Facebook page, etc. If you could indicate that kind of support. 339. You're holding yours up, sir, on the end there? No, you're not. Okay, I didn't think you were. 356. 361. 372. 373. 374. Very good. Please indicate if you feel you have ever been denied an opportunity because of your ethnic background or your race. If you feel like you've ever been denied an opportunity for one of those reasons, whether you actually did anything about it or not. No one. Thank you. Please indicate if you feel you have ever been falsely accused or suspected for doing something wrong based on your ethnicity or your race. You just thought this has got to be about my ethnicity or my race. 374. Thank you. Please raise your card if you agree with this statement. The old Georgia state flag, the one that flew from 1956 to 2002, was a racist symbol. You feel the old flag was a racist symbol. It was taken off the pole in 2002 because many believe that. Raise your hand if you agree with that. Your number is missing from your hand. Thank you. All right, 342 and 268. Thank you. Who here agrees that people of color are not treated fairly or equally in the criminal justice system? Please raise your card if you agree with that statement. 342, 355, 356, 361, 372, 373, 374, 268. Thank you. Please raise your card if you agree. Police in this country do not treat black and white folks equally. Whether that be because you had an experience with it or you just generally feel that way, locally, statewide, or nationally. 339, 355, 356, 357. Coming back to the front row, 342, 361, 373, 374, and 268. who here feels that a psychologist or a psychiatrist could diagnose just about anybody with a mental illness these days? You feel that in the field of psychiatry or psychology that people get diagnosed way too easily with some kind of mental illness. 368. Thank you. Please indicate by raising your card if you have an opinion about the lapse of time between the shooting and incident date, in this case February 23rd, and the arrest date several months later. If you have an opinion about that lapse of time, whatever that opinion is, please raise your card. 339, 342, 353, 361, 372, 373, 374, and 268. As Ms. Dunikoski has indicated, we may be looking at a 2 or 3 week long trial. And during that time period, we're going to try to hold business hours to a certain extent, 9 to 5-ish, depending on how the day is going. There may be a morning break, a lunch break, an afternoon break. And what we're desirous of is your full attention while we're in court, paying attention to what's happening in the presentation of evidence. Please indicate by raising your card if you feel like you've got something going on in your personal life or in your work life outside of the courtroom that you feel is going to steal away your attention and thereby deprive us of your full attention as we are trying to present the facts and the critical evidence in this case. If you feel like there is something that's going to pull you away, please indicate by raising your card. 344, 353, 355, 361, 373, and 270. Under the same umbrella of full attention and meaningful consideration of the evidence, if any of you are dealing with a mental issue, whatever that is, a physical ailment, hearing or visual impairment that will affect your ability to give us your full attention, that you're concerned about, please indicate by raising your card. Okay, 270. Thank you. Two more to go. Anyone here concerned that whatever verdict they render in this case is going to cause them problems after the trial? You're concerned that it's going to impact your life or your business or your family in some way, and you're fearful about that. Please raise your card and indicate so we can understand what that concern is. 353. 351. Okay. All right, last question. We've studied the answers, and in those answers that you've given us identifying information that we're not sharing with anyone. Social media accounts, address, opinions about things, how many times you've watched the video, etc. Has any of that changed for anyone? Has any information on the form that you filled out, since you filled it out, I assume it'd be a couple weeks ago, has any of that information changed that you can recall? Raise your hand, please. It may be something very insignificant or small, but we'd like to be able to follow up with you about it. 351, 353, and 355. Okay, very good. Well, we look forward to speaking with you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do at this point is we're going to take a 10-minute recess. During that recess, I'm going to ask that you go ahead and step out of the jury assembly room and then return back in. As I indicated a little bit earlier, what's going to occur at this point is the parties are going to transition into the courtroom, and then there are going to be some follow-up questions directed to some or possibly all of you based on your responses here. And each one of you will come in probably individually. During the recess, and you're going to hear these instructions from me a couple of times, but during the recess, do not discuss this case amongst yourselves or with anybody else. In other words, don't walk out and start talking about the case or what you may think you know. Don't go reaching out to anybody. Don't go making telephone calls. You can make them, but don't go and call folks and start talking about the case. So again, don't discuss this case amongst yourselves or with anybody else. Don't go looking for any information about the case, meaning don't get on your phones if you got them and start looking at your news feeds or picking up the newspaper or whatever may be out there. Again, don't go looking for any information about the case. And then finally, if somebody does approach you about the case or wants to talk to you about the case, please let the court know and we'll go ahead and address that. So in other words, don't be standing around, don't let anybody approach you. And then also, if anybody is talking about the case in your presence of hearing, walk away. So please, as you leave, grab all of your personal belongings. You're welcome to bring them back in. We're going to take a 10-minute recess. I want to again thank you for your service here in Glenn County. It is appreciated. And again, we can't do what we do without you. You are a critical component of the Superior Court. And again, thank you. And I do ask for your patience with regard to this process. Again, this is going to take most of the day, and I appreciate your time. So with that, we'll see one or more of you starting in about 10 minutes. Thank you.